Welcome. My name's Alexis Davis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Technology Advancement Center, and I am very happy to be here with Karan Sandhi from CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike is one of our premier sponsors of our upcoming Defend the Rail, which is here at the TAC, February 10th and 11th. And I'd like to turn it over to Karan to please give us a little bit more of an introduction, and I'm excited to have a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Alexis. Pleasure to meet you. My name is Karan Sandhi. I'm the CTO for Global Public Sector Business here at CrowdStrike. I've been on board with the company for about 8 months, but I've done the CTO stint a couple of times in the past for other cybersecurity companies as well as a big hyperscaler. And I've been in the public sector space now for almost 20 years. Half of it was actually as a technical officer in CIA, where I did a bunch of cool things. So. Pleasure to be here and bring my perspective from different parts of the industry to this session.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. What we're about to talk today is not only relevant for the community at large, but particularly highlights what attendees can see when they come to our Defend the Rail collaborative event, keyword collaborative, because it's our industry partners like CrowdStrike that really help us address the problems that we have necessary in the critical infrastructure arena, particularly rail, that we are talking about in February. So let me ask you, what shifts are you seeing in the modern threat landscape that you think security leaders absolutely need to be addressing today?
Yeah, so a vast majority of the security leaders are aware of this, but a lot of the threat landscape has really changed.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone away from really technical vulnerabilities that get exploited. It's still there, it's still a major focus for a lot of institutions, but the rising sort of attack technique that's happening is actually logging in. What does that mean? Well, people are basically stealing credentials to log into your system, and sort of the term that we like to use at CrowdStrike is attackers aren't attacking in; they're simply logging in to take over your environment, which is a big shift in my mind. And we're finding that identity exploitation as a vector of attack is the number one attack vector that we're seeing as the source of a breach.
Mm-hmm.
And the more wild sort of data point behind this is, from our most recent threat intelligence report, we found that the average e-crime breakout time has basically gone down to 48 minutes, which is incredibly fast, right? And the reality is almost 80% of those attacks that are happening with malware-free attack techniques, which is a very different sort of mindset and a different sort of perspective on how security attacks are happening in the industry now. People are used to sort of the traditional attacks and the traditional ways that people are coming in, but the ones that are more sophisticated, sort of up to speed on the latest attack vectors, are finding in that really credential-based attack is the number one
Mm-hmm.
attack vector.
So that credential-based attack, would you have an example perhaps in the rail industry that might be applicable?
Really, this is applicable across the industry, but if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it from a railway community perspective, the parallel would be what we've seen in other industries writ large, which is attackers are usually using two techniques to come in and create credentials that are valid. One, if you look at the Russian nation states, they're really focused on stealing session IDs, doing password spray attacks, and stealing your credentials that you have, like me as an individual have. Whereas North Koreans, they're really mostly focused on creating a legitimate presence inside your environment by actually becoming an employee. So
Mm.
they'll go through the interview process. They'll try to get, contracting jobs, any way to be able to come in and service, a customer in their mind. But their real motivation is to go in, build credibility, build a skill set that is applicable and beneficial to the business, and then over time, be able to kind of have their hooks in the environment so that they can start siphoning data out or put in a ransomware based attack inside the environment. But again, the North Koreans are really wanting to maintain stealth, legitimate presence, whereas the Russians are coming in and stealing credentials and exploiting. Both of these techniques are applicable to the railway community, because to the adversary, they're just looking for any vulnerable, victim to go after.
When you were explaining those types of scenarios, how does CrowdStrike's Falcon platform fundamentally solve that challenge of a hybrid identity security versus more of a siloed security. I think that the Falcon platform highlights more of that hybrid element, and I wonder if that's something that to be further drilled down upon in the examples that you gave.
Yeah, sure, sure. Happy to. So really, we're focused on protecting customers where they're at. So some of our customers are still using on-prem Active Directory, and those customers have my empathy here because a lot of people who are Active Directory experts know that on-prem Active Directory is like Swiss cheese. It's a very big vulnerability typically, but they are where they are. This is what they have to manage, and this is what they have to protect. So we, of course, support customers that have on-prem Active Directory environments. Good chunk of those customers have now transitioned to cloud-hosted identity platforms, and we also offer capabilities there in addition to any SaaS-based platforms. Like, a vast majority of customers are familiar with Okta. They're either Okta customers or using Okta in some parts of their environment. We cover the whole spectrum of those platforms. So that's one unique attribute when it comes to identity. The second unique attribute is we really firmly believe in a single sensor or an agent for customers who are more familiar with that naming convention. So we have one sensor that handles identity, handles endpoints, handles cloud workloads. We try to keep some uniformity and keep things integrated. So it's one console, one agent, and one sort of uniform platform for customers to come into. And the benefit that we provide by having that approach is customers that are buying siloed solutions or have like pure play providers for each of these sort of security domains. The adversaries are betting on the fact that these tools are going to say siloed, the alerts are going to be difficult for you to triage, the alerts are going to be disjointed, and they live between sort of these disjointed solutions to find an attack vector in. They're hoping that you don't see those alerts. They're hoping that you're not looking at those data points. So having a unified platform actually is the new approach for a lot of big vendors in the space, including CrowdStrike. And we believe that a platform that provides all of these tooling under one roof is the right approach to tackling these high speed and highly sophisticated adversaries.
So with the siloed approach, you're saying that it's also there's a lot of manual bypass for missing the alerts, even though maybe the alerts are being caught, they're just not being able to really be identified in a way that could be addressed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's this term used in the industry. We call it alert fatigue. It's hard for a SOC analyst, but typically the tier one and tier two analysts that are just dealing with the barrage of data that's coming to them. And at some point, they're going to focus on the things that have been either prioritized by the tool as the top ones to go, or just the ones that they had bandwidth to go after.
Yeah.
So the more automation and the more sort of AI, which I know is very buzzy right now, the more AI that's been baked into the product to help with automatic triaging, which is something that we do very well with our Charlotte platform. We do detection triage and alert triage for our customers so that they don't have to figure out which ones are the high priority events, which ones are false positives. The platform does a lot of that filtering for you, and they automate away some of the more mundane aspects of dealing with alerts and detections.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. We talked earlier also about unified identity protection, and you were describing to me some attacks that specifically are a scenario that's addressed by the unified identity protection. Can you go ahead and describe that again for me, since we were not on camera? So I would love to hear more about that for our watching audience.
Yeah, sure, sure. So the best way to really break this up is to think about external attackers and adversaries who are really focused on taking over your network from the inside. The external attackers are really focused on trying to find any victim in the environment that can either click on a phishing attack or a password reset attempt or QR phishing, which I think is called quishing, where they'll send you a QR code and hope that you'll be either an administrator or a victim with some kind of interesting credentials for someone to steal. You'll scan the QR code. You'll go to a phishing site. They'll steal your credentials and your tokens and be able to get in from the outside in to your environment. We've seen a lot of the nation state attackers in Russia really predominantly focused on these types of attacks. And then you have sort of the North Korean actors, which are more focused on trying to get into the environment as a legitimate employee. They'll come in for a contract job, or they'll try to compete on salary. They'll compete on skill set, which is kind of wild because a lot of folks are like, well, where are these jobs? I'm not even getting those jobs. But yeah, the North Koreans are focused on trying to come in as a legitimate employee and maintain presence.
Hmm.
And once they learn the environment, they're basically going to create persistence through backdoors. And over time, they'll either slowly, siphon all the data that they care about out, or they're going to leave like a ransomware attack. They'll use ransomware to be able to exploit their victims into, paying money and taking advantage of them. So it's really two different mindsets. The best way
Hmm.
to think about it is North Koreans are wanting to become legitimate as employees. Russians are really coming in and, banging on the front door or
Yeah.
trying to trick you into getting your credentials.
It intrigues me more to the North Korean example that you're giving. Where there's really it's a long game. It's really building a lot of trust and a lot of
Correct.
integrity. To outside eyes. How do you see that as the larger threat for our critical infrastructure? Because that's what scares me. That's what keeps me up at night. Because, like you said, you have an attack, maybe a malware, or banging on the door. It's okay.
Yeah.
All hands on deck. We see that there's an issue. Yes, it might be causing a disabling factor at the moment, but we're going to address it. But what about like the hidden? We don't know when it's going to come up because, as you described, it's the vulnerability is just slowly continuing to get exposed and exposed and exposed. How do we address that now in our critical infrastructure, our water systems, our rail systems, our transportation and power grid systems?
Yeah, so I have two different perspectives on this. After spending 12 years at CIA, I got to learn a thing or two about how foreign adversaries in the intelligence community typically operate. And you can take your pick of any of the top tier intelligence services across the globe, and vast majority of them, initially China was not too concerned about remaining stealth. Bull in the China shop was the analogy. But certain nation states, they actually consider being stealth their primary objective, and that's to your point, right?
Right.
How do we think about these adversaries? Because if we can understand how these adversaries operate, we can think better about how we want to defend against it. For certain nation states, and I won't name them, they consider it to be a big intelligence failure if their presence in a network was discovered and attributed back to them. You could take your pick of who that is. Recent articles name them specifically, but I'm not going to go into that. But those nation states consider it a penalty for the intelligence officer or for that exploitation officer that your stealthness was discovered. That's considered a failure. If that's the way they operate, then imagine how many of them have been successful in laying dormant in your environment,
Hmm.
waiting for the right time to exploit you. I know a certain country in the Asia Pacific region that noticed a very predictable pattern where the attackers would be in the environment for at least 6 months. They would wait for either a national holiday or a very big event where a lot of the government folks were not actually at the office. So they're not going to necessarily pick weekends, but they are going to pick, Christmas or a national holiday where they know that government employees are not going to be there and everybody's focused on, participating in the event or being out with family. Those are the times where they will bring out their most serious and heinous sort of vulnerability exploitation activities or internal kind of command and control systems. That because they know that's the weakest point in the year where there's going to be the least amount of people focused
Hmm.
on remediating that vulnerability. So to your point, how do you think about that? Well, you think about it as, hey, we need to have a good security practice, whether that's identity, whether that's having good cloud workload protection, whether that's using automation, and continuously sweep and hunt for that threat in your environment. You can't assume that if you're okay today, that someone wasn't laying dormant for a while, waiting for the right time to exploit you. On the other end, if you're so sort of inundated with dealing with the banging on the front door threat actors that you don't even have time or
Right.
the political capital, financial capital, or mental capacity to go after the threat hunting activities, then you really do need to prioritize the thing that is banging kind of the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? Deal with that, automate that so that you can now become more sophisticated like the banks. And I'll give you a quick sort of 20-second story around one of the financial institution customers that I helped almost a year and a half ago. They noticed that the stealth actor was actually staying in their environment as I think it's called account receivable or payable account receivable payable person, and they found out that the person got legitimate credentials inside the environment. They stayed there for at least a year. That's the time that they were able to attribute it to. They took all the training. So they took all the compliance training, all the activities. And the only reason that person got tripped up or sort of noticed by internal security people as well as the CFO team was because they accidentally paid twice an invoice that was intended for them. So this actor was staying in the environment. They were basically paying for their own invoices that they were invoicing themselves for and
Mm-hmm.
quietly siphoning, a couple $1,000s each month out of the system, hoping that they stay below the radar. And the only reason they got tripped up is they ended up paying twice and it raised an alarm. So imagine, once they create a legitimate presence in your environment, you don't really know what they're
Right.
doing. Some may be motivated by creating havoc by putting ransomware. Others may just want to take IP out.
Right, right. I mean, it's easy to become complacent, especially when you have so many other issues and whether, in business in general, it's not just in the security department, I mean, it's across the board. You have too many things on your front doorstep that you have to address. So
Yeah.
do you have the bandwidth and the ability to put the time into investigating those like submarines that are below the surface?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, we live in a great time. I know for a lot of CISOs and SOC operators, they're
yeah,
like, I don't know how we're living in a good time. The adversary has like ChatGPT and they can come after us with some really sophisticated attacks. And my counterpoint to them is, yeah, but guess what? You have more automation and tools. We provide so many capabilities to automate away the mundane aspects of a job as a SOC analyst
yeah,
that you can go do the fun stuff, right?
yeah,
Let the machine do the boring things. As humans, you have so many other fun things that you could do.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's actually an interesting time to be alive when AI is taking over so many of those mundane and boring aspects of a security role.
So business wise,
Yeah.
implementing any security process or product, it takes money. Um, you get everyone on board that it's needed. We've got to prioritize it, but still, some businesses may or may not be able to absorb the cost. What are you finding in the business model of your clients? Are you getting a lot of acceptance? Has it been difficult to get them to come on board, say to have CrowdStrike's product, this Falcon, or any other types of solutions that you're providing?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So, look, I get it. Every vendor is knocking at your door wanting to sell you a product. At some point, you have to look for a return on investment, just like when you buy anything as a person and living in a private life. When you buy a car, you're thinking, hey, is a battery electric car good for me, or is a
Right,
gasoline car? You
right.
make these sort of trade-off discussions and analysis inside the SOC or in a security space too. Um, what we're finding are real tangible numbers, and I'm going to throw a number out there, but I'm going to back it up because a lot of folks throw out, oh, you're going to get 200% improvement in your SOC efficiencies. So we found from our analysis, and we have metrics that we can share with customers, case studies that we've done to back up this number, that there's a 310% return on investment when they buy identity security. And there are really two parts to this number coming out. One is on the operational efficiency, which you can quantify, which you can actually measure and say, okay, I was able to reduce some of this workload that I had a external party do or a contractor do. Now I can bring that sort of automation here, do some of these identity risk mitigations. I don't have to have so many people looking for elevated privileges. I don't have to have so many people going
Hmm.
out and checking credentials and resetting passwords because it's all been automated into a seamless activity. So operational efficiency is one metric that goes into that 310% realization of improvement. The second metric is really in risk reduction. And yes, that's a little bit more subjective. That's a little bit more soft because risk is hard for you to always quantify. But what you will find is that customers that, we went in and serviced and provided capabilities to post breach, we were able to measure that impact, right? Bring that number into our equation and formula and say, hey, the customers that we did do incident response for, where there was a breach and the breach happened because of an identity that was stolen, this was the financial impact that they had to
Yeah.
gain or they were hit with, excuse me. So that financial impact comes into this formula, and we basically extrapolate that to be able to tell customers that look, if you don't address this head on, this specific risk, this is the business impact. This is how much in
Yeah.
dollars and cents you're going to lose every hour, every day, every week that you're not able to get your employees back online or any of your customers to be able to get serviced. And we're finding that on average, the payback period is 6 months, which is pretty incredible. Now, these are very tailored discussions. Each customer has to come to us and we have to be able to rationalize it for them. We're always happy to do that math and do what we call a total cost analysis for them so they can see the value that our products offer. And I would challenge them to do that with all vendors, to say, hey, give me a TCV of what your product does and my payback period for this investment, because nobody has unlimited budget and they can't always keep asking for more money every year.
Absolutely. I mean, there are multiple players on the decision-making team, and
Yeah,
dollars will always carry a large fraction of why decisions made and not made. So that's
yeah,
it. 6 months. Yeah, that can really save a lot of. I mean, it can actually save a company from going under. So it's a
absolutely.
small
Yeah, I
price
mean,
to pay.
security is one of those things where, if you have the capital to address all the risks that you have, you should. But I get it. There's not unlimited
Right.
budget for
You got to
everything.
make you have to
Got
make
to
some
make
priority
trade-offs.
decision making. Yes. Yes. As we're nearing the end of our discussion here, CrowdStrike's going to be at our Defend the Rail, February 10th
Yeah.
and 11th. Can you give us a little bit of a snippet, a little bit of a teaser of what our attendees can expect to see from CrowdStrike at the event on February 10th and 11th?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think everybody's going to find that it's going to be a fun event. I try to do my briefings in a fun and engaging way. So there'll actually be a teaser in the very beginning of my presentation where it's going to be a two truths and a lie, and try to make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't give away what those questions are, so people will go research the answer out. But we'll kick off with something fun and interesting. I promise you'll have a good time hearing the initial part of the presentation, and they're going to be real tangible stories on specific actors and how they came in, the steps that they took. Something fun and interesting. This isn't a sales pitch
Yes.
necessarily of our product. Certainly, our product is baked in throughout the presentation because that's how we can tell the full story. But it's really to leave you with an impression that, hey, identity security is a really big deal, and we really do need to start thinking differently about this threat vector. And on a personal note, me being able to tell my 13-year-old that I'm going to be speaking at an event where there are going to be lots of folks coming in from the railroad industry is going to be fun. My son is now 13 years old, but I still remember when he was 5, buying every Thomas the Train engine that he
Oh my God.
could.
Yep.
So being able to take a photo on the stage and send it to him and say, "Hey, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm talking to a railroad industry.
Yeah.
One of your favorite toys from your childhood."
Oh, God, I love that. And yes, to your point, we will have everybody in the rail community, and that's what's so special about this event. It's a really curated group of community players from government, industry, Intel community, academia. Um, we have everybody in the room to have those conversations that address the challenges of which we just spent these past 20 minutes discussing.
Yeah,
Um, and it's not just another, hey, let's now talk about, oh, it's a problem. Let's actually have the people in the room that can have takeaway action items and conversations right then and there to address, okay, so how can we solve them? And that's what's really great about this event, CrowdStrike being one of them that can be here in the room. I'm excited that you'll be presenting and leading a roundtable discussion so that it can
yeah.
have a little bit more of a drill down, kind of a small group dialogue. That's also another element that our event fosters is that we can have those, easy conversations. So I'm thrilled that you're going to be a part of it. If your son has off from school, he can come if you want to bring
Yeah.
him.
Yeah,
But
he's 13 now, so he probably doesn't want to remember me bringing up all his toys from back in the day. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
okay.
And I'll be an open book, so I'm looking forward to seeing all the attendees come over and talk to me and ask me any questions, all the tough ones too. Happy to hear anything that people have on their mind.
Okay. Great. Well, Karan, thank you so much for the time that you spent with me today. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you in just shy of 2 months from now.
Nice.
So, any closing remarks? Do you have anything that you'd like to share before we go?
No, no, please come attend the event. It's going to be a lot of fun, I promise. You'll enjoy it. It'll be a good discussion and you'll learn a lot.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.